Hello everyone, welcome back to Archangel RC and to the second part of my T1 Ranger VTOL build video. The first one pretty much ended with the plane being completed and ready for a maiden flight, but if you haven't seen it, please follow the link in the top right corner here or in the video description to go and see it first. So let's jump right where we left off last time, which was propellers. The propellers of choice were some 3-bladed 5x4 ones I had laying around. I tightened them down and headed out to the flying field. It was a foggy afternoon, but that wasn't going to stop me since I would have been content even if I'd only tested the VTOL part successfully. So after a quick compass calibration, it was arming time and time to take off as expected, and this VTOL tune was not at all adequate for my motors, and you can see and hear the results quite clearly. Oscillations were so out of sync that it wouldn't even take off with higher throttle. It was as if the code was choking. So I took out my laptop and brought back the PID settings for the VTOL stage only to their default values and gave it another go. This time the frequency of the oscillations changed, and with a bit more throttle the Ranger was able to hover, although you can clearly see and hear that the tune was still not good, but at least you can now see which axis had the issue, the pitch, and it was quite obvious. Despite this though, if I punched the throttle higher, it would shoot up, but also the oscillations would go away, so I was certain this was a tuning issue, but decided to try and do a transition anyway before calling it a day, since the fog had also lifted a little bit and I was almost certain I wouldn't lose the plane from sight. Throttled up, gained some altitude and flipped the switch, and it happened. Even with a good deal of unpleasant noise and through some nasty oscillations, the T1 was able to transition to forward flight, and you can clearly hear the moment that happens because it goes from an angry swarm of bees to complete silence in an instant. Yes, once in forward flight mode, with these props at least, the plane was super silent and super smooth. I have to give credit where credit is due. Painless 360 and Andy did an awesome tune for the forward flight phase. The plane is on rails. Well done guys, I am sure it is just as solid for the factory VTOL setup. I will just have to get there on my own since I am very far from the factory setup. So I was able to fly around for a bit, transitioned back and landed, and was quite happy with the results. The plane was awesome, and for the first time since I first discovered the disconnecting wing issue, I was actually feeling optimistic for this one's future. As far as programming goes, before the next flight I did what I remember was recommended to do years ago when you were tuning a copter and got oscillations, and that was to halve the related PIDs and go from there. Since the issue was obviously plaguing only the pitch axis, I halved the PIDs for that one and was pretty much ready to try again. Next time I'd hover a bit to see if the PID changes made any difference, and indeed the oscillations were almost gone. So I dialed down the pitch PIDs just a bit more, and guess what? No oscillations to speak of on the pitch axis, while the row axis looked good, so I didn't touch it at this point. There was some hunting on the yaw axis, but that is to be expected when you consider that I am running the default PIDs with no tune on that axis, plus these servos have just the tiniest bit of play, but I didn't really care about that. VTOL constitutes about 30 seconds of the whole flight, and it seemed to be working alright here, so with no oscillations now, it was time to get some flying done. Transitions were pretty decent and smooth. ArduPilot definitely is an awesome platform for these things. So I flew around the in-city flying field, even went around the high rises being constructed nearby, but since I did not have a recording camera on the plane, all we have is the DVR recording. It is not very suitable for the larger planes, so I haven't done much flying here recently. But anyway, I was happy. and the plane was flying exceptionally well. So next I moved to one of our rural locations, but still have only the DVR footage to show for it. This time, however, the FPV camera was looking very weird for some reason. Could have been some dirt on the lens, so the recording looks weird as well. But it is all I have. I did venture further out, got to 4 kilometers away, did some treetop surfing around the neighboring hills, then a low pass over the nearby village, over the dam, and back to the flying field for a transition and landing. Really was enjoying this thing, although I was considering I needed to come up with an HD cam mount and to get it running with an antenna tracker soon so I can take full advantage of the newly utilized EORS setup. Later that same day I also tested some other props, but before that I did take advantage of the port pass-through function for BL Heli ESCs to reverse the direction of one of the forward motors because the APC 5.5 by 6.5E props were all the same direction. Worked straight away, so they went on the plane right after. The reason for this test is that I feel like the 5x4 props I was flying with until now were a bit slow, so I wanted to test with a prop with a higher pitch so I can get more forward speed. Objectively, the 5x4s were not slow, especially when you consider I have the max throttle on the T1 limited to 70%, and I'm still able to easily get speeds of over 90 km an hour, but I wanted a more efficient cruise, and that might work with higher pitch props, but for lack of anything else, I went with the APCs, which require one of the motors to be reversed, actually making all of them rotate in the same direction. So now I'll be relying on the vectored thrust to keep the plane from spinning on the yaw axis during hover. It did take off, but it does take some time for the autopilot to correct the yaw and stop it from spinning. It is noticeably louder in hover, and it also draws noticeably more amps. Transitioning to forward flight quiets it down a lot, and you can tell it is a lot faster, felt like a rocket. And that is still with the throttle limited to 70%. I can definitely see it flying apart if I let it go up to 100%, but I won't be repeating that mistake from the fighter here. No thanks. However, I can't say for certain if it's more efficient at cruise speed. Feels like these props draw 1 to 2 amps less to maintain a forward speed of around 65 km an hour in the same conditions as the 5x4 3 blades, but the added draw during hover is not ideal, especially at the end of the flight when the pack's voltage would be even lower, so draw will be even higher. These cells have performed admirably so far with the high current hovering, especially at end of flight when currents easily go over 20 amps, but still, I feel like these props are not the solution I'm looking for, so I suppose I will have to look for some race quad props with higher pitch, but again preferably 2 blades, since I still think they will be more efficient than the 3-bladed ones. For the next flight session, which was scheduled for the 31st of December 2023, I designed and printed a mount for the Runcam Thumb Pro, which mounts in the nose of the T1, and also decided to try some other props I had lying around as well. The props in question are the Dragonfly ones. Does anyone remember those without having to Google them? Yes, those are the granddaddies of the modern race quad unbreakable props. These were the first of their kind at the dawn of the race quad era, although only the 5-inch ones were actually more durable. The 6-inch version was as fragile as it could get. I have a good number of those around. They are 2-bladed 5x4.5, so slightly higher pitch, and have clockwise and counterclockwise versions, so I put a set on the T1 to test them out. Once in the air, they are about on par with the 3-bladed ones when it comes to hover noise, but once you go to forward flight, these are noticeably much noisier and result in a higher amp draw. Only goes to show how far race quad props have come both in terms of efficiency and noise over the years, which is quite impressive to be honest. Not going to comment on durability because it is not exactly applicable in this situation, but I have seen how modern day props fare during races, and the durability improvements have also been quite impressive. I was not happy with the Dragonfly props though, but did endure a full flight so I can get some proper video with the Runcam Thumb Pro. No DVR recordings of the last flights on the previous outing, nor this one because my DVR decided to call it quits, and in addition to wreaking havoc to the picture on my monitor, recordings from it were pure black with nothing on. It was quite annoying, but obviously something had gone wrong with it. It just started doing it out of nowhere, so I guess it is time I got a new one, but at least now I have the Thumb Pro recordings. For the time being, I will go back to the 5x4 3-bladed props as they seem to give me the best all-around performance of everything I currently have, but I will look into some possibly modern day 2-bladed race quad props with higher pitch, if they even exist, to get and try on the T1, so if you guys have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments below. Overall, I am exceptionally pleased with how this VTOL conversion turned out. It did way better than I thought it would. The plane feels like it's on rails. Hopefully get a lot more flights in, and would be able to venture further out when I get it working with the Crossbow mini antenna tracker over the ELRS telemetry link, if at all possible. If anyone has any ideas on how to get that done, please let me know. Now, that brings an end to this build for now. If you have liked this video or would like to say something about it, you know what to do. If you want to get notified for future videos, you most likely also know what to do. All relevant links are in the video description below, with the affiliate links allowing you to support this channel at no additional cost to you. Other forms of support are also available there. I would like to express my eternal gratitude to all the people who have supported me so far and will continue to do so. Safe flying, and I will see you in the next one.